Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to talk about today about the spinning wheel technique to greasing wheel bearings, whether it be here obviously I have a double jet ski trailer, it could be a boat trailer, any type of trailer with this type of bearing. I call these bearing buddies, but there's a variety of names for them. There's a cap on them. You take the cap off, and in the center here is your grease nipple. So we'll call these bearing buddies. We'll just call them that. And so what I do is I actually, when I grease these bearings, I won't have my jet skis on. And if you had a boat, you wouldn't have a boat on it. They would be off the trailer. Because what I do to use the spinning wheel technique is I raise up one side of the trailer. I always use a block. And I never set the jack under any suspension components. And actually, we'll look at it so you can see what I mean. You see how I'm set up there? There's no suspension components there. So I'll jack right on the frame. So when I jack it, I'll raise the wheel maybe 1 inch off the ground. That's all I need to do. But before I'll do that, what I always do, because this is a great time, is I'll check all my wheel lugs. You see, I'll make sure they're tight while it's resting on the ground, and I check all the time anyways. Another little trick I do is I mark them all. If you look really close, you'll see a mark there. And that tells me it's tight. So I just have to go around every time I'm going to take out my trailer, and I just check all my lugs. And if the black marks line up, I know they're tight. I know they haven't backed off. So the first step is, what do I need? Well, grease gun. I have a small one here, and I'll probably go through 2 tubes per side. If you have a regular size grease gun, probably 3/4 of a tube, because you really want to get all the grease, any water that might have accumulated in that bearing out. So anyways, check the wheel lugs. I have my grease. I have my grease gun. I have a putty knife, because as I'm spinning, I will catch some of the grease, because a lot of grease will start coming out, and I'll throw the grease into my tray. I'll have my tray about here. So anyways, what I would do is I would jack up one side first. I would get my grease gun on. I'd put my grease gun as full. I would have my grease gun on, and I would, because I can't hold the camera and do everything at once, I would spin the wheel, not so fast, about like this. Let's see if you can get about like this, not too fast. And I would just start pumping. The grease will start oozing out. If there's any water there, grease and water, I'll catch it with my putty knife, put it in my tray. You'd be surprised what comes out. Now, if you don't raise it and use the spinning wheel technique, what you'll find is, if I just start pumping now, I'll get maybe a shot of grease out of here, maybe a few drops of water out of there, but it won't be even. The whole idea of the spinning wheel technique is to really flush the whole system out. All the bearings, any water, any debris that's accumulated, hard grease, it'll all come out. And that's why I say in this small grease gun, I use about 2 tubes. So the trailer's jacked up on one side. There's no jet skis, no boat, whatever type of trailer, because you don't want all that weight on it. Raise it about 1 inch. That's plenty, 1/2 inch, whatever. Spin it about this speed. See if we can get a good shot of that. Start pumping your grease gun. The grease, water, whatever else will come out. Just accumulate it with this putty knife. You could use a stick, whatever you want. Throw it in there. When you're confident it's 100% clear, you're done. You take your grease gun off. I would clean out. I always leave some grease in here that's obviously oozed out. You know, whatever you want, but I wouldn't have grease right out to here. I go in and clean a bit like that and call it a day. And put the cap back on. Lower this side, and I'm done. And I'll go over to the other side of the trailer and do it on the other side. Obviously, with a small grease gun, I've got to stop and reload. If you have a normal size grease gun, you won't have any problem. One grease gun will do one side for sure, but you'll have to reload for the other side. Anyways, that's what I do for wheel bearings. I have, for the front jack, I'll tell you a story. My front jack, I put a brand new one on, and it lasted a year. And I was a little perplexed how that could be. It stripped in here, the gear mechanism, there's a worm gear in there. It was gone after 1 year, and it had a grease nipple on the side, and I would grease it religiously. Well, when it was shot, what I found was I took the top off, and there was minimal grease. It just wasn't getting on the gear and the worm, and it cost me about, over here I'm in Southeast Asia, it cost me about $75 for a new one. You can probably get them a lot cheaper. So anyways, I got a new one. This one doesn't have a grease nipple, but what I learned was every few months I take the top off. See how I do it? I've already released it because it's hard to hold the camera and do it. And I take the top off and I fill it directly. And I experimented actually with some cup grease. And what I do is I take my putty knife, I just fill it right up, right to the top. And I haven't done it for a few months. And it does ooze out. It does come out the sides. And I wipe it off every once in a while. But here's the actual worm gear here. See if we can focus in there. So it's well soaked in grease now. So that's how I do it. Even if you have a grease nipple, just pop the top off. See how much grease I've got in there? I mean, I've had this for years now. I've had this, quite a while. So it's held up well. Just tap that on every couple months or 6 months, whatever you want. Just pop it off and fill it up with grease with your putty knife. And it'll save it, you know, because you'll be surprised. Even if this didn't have a grease nipple, I'd pop it off. A friend of mine was here with a boat a while ago, and he had a grease nipple. He says, oh, it's all good. I says, well, let's pop the top off. And we popped it off, and it was pretty well dry. And the grease was just bypassing the worm gears. And so anyways, that's today's tip, mainly on the spinning wheel technique, how to grease bearings. Doesn't have to be a jet ski trailer. Could be a boat trailer, any type of trailer you have. Anyways, this is Rod, and hope that helps.